All right. So, yes, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about lake water quality data, and I'm going to get things rolling by showing how this data has been used over the past 4 decades, almost 5 decades now, in the management of Deal Lake. So when we see problems like this, invasive aquatic plants, algae blooms, the dreadful, harmful algae blooms, I think it's important that we remember that those are really symptoms of some type of lake water quality problem. And just like when we go to the doctor when we have a fever, that fever may be caused by a variety of different ailments. But unless we know what's causing the fever, then we don't get the right cure. And the same thing holds true with managing and restoring Deal Lake. It takes a lot of data, and it has taken a lot of data for us to understand what some of these problems are and continue to understand and dissect those problems further and further so that we can then develop and implement the correct solutions. So my mantra for lake management has always been, you just can't treat the symptom, which would be like the algae bloom or the weed problems, or when we see turbidity in the lake. We need to understand what is causing those symptoms to manifest. And that distinguishes us between lake managers and just doing maintenance. And it's important for the long-term restoration of the lake that we're managing the lake. We're not just maintaining it. But to ID and address what's causing problems in Deal Lake and any other lake requires data, and it requires a lot of data. And the reason being is that lakes are very complex living organisms. They're defined by a combination of various attributes. Some of those are physical, such as the depth and the size of the lake. Some of them are hydrologic, how much water enters and leaves the lake on a daily, monthly, annual basis. Some of them are chemical. And that's where we focus our efforts in terms of monitoring the lake, measuring these various chemical attributes of the lake that then tell us, different things about the health and well-being of Deal Lake. And then there's definitely biological attributes. The important thing is that all of these interact. They're all pushing and shoving against each other. And so just changing one doesn't necessarily improve another. And so it becomes very important to collect a myriad of data and then use that data to develop a restoration and management plan. So with that plan, then we have the ability of not only understanding what's causing the ailment, but then being able to direct our efforts so that we are doing the right things to make the lake healthier. And this is important because just approaching things from a maintenance standpoint tends to be more of a helter-skelter type of an approach to trying to cure these problems. And that's never going to be successful in the long run. So since the 70s, data has been used to guide the restoration of the lake. The data, as I noted, has been used to ID and quantify the causes of the lake's ailments. We've used that data to then help us develop, like through Peter's office, different types of measures that are needed to correctly address those problems. And then that data also has been the supporting foundation of all of the grant money that we received over the past 40 years. Without that data in hand, there'd be no ability for us to really obtain the grant money that we then need to implement management measures. So development of that Deal Lake Restoration and Management Plan, which started back in 1983. It was one of the first documents I published. It basically established a blueprint for the restoration of the lake. And over the years, we've built on that. We've expanded it, we've modified it, we've utilized it. And just like you wouldn't build a house without a plan, you can't restore a lake and manage a lake properly without a plan. And, Jason and I work with a lot of lakes, and this is sort of like a flow chart that I've used myself to sort of like guide my, efforts in terms of restoring lakes. And we start off with a diagnostic study, and there's certain types of data that's collected during that diagnostic study. Again, this is telling us what's causing, to use this analogy of like me being sick, what's causing me to have a fever. We then take that data and we analyze it further. Some of that's done with models. Some of it's done by comparing it to other, there could be other types of parameters that have been established by DEP or EPA, but we analyze that. And essentially, through the analysis of that data, then we can start to see, okay, are these problems watershed-based? Is it problems that are occurring external? Or is it things that are happening within the lake itself? And then that enables us to identify different types of management actions. Some of them may be watershed management related, and that's where we're trying to prevent the problem from occurring in the first place, stop it, manage it in some capacity. So this is what we're doing with a lot of our stormwater projects, actually intercept pollutants and stop those pollutants from impacting the lake. And then there's restoration activities that have been done over the years. Some of it has been dredging in some cases. We've done, weed and algae control projects. And that is really trying to fix these problems that have manifested or improve the condition of the lake. But that all requires data and the analysis of that data. And then eventually, when we go into the action phase, to actually implement these measures that we've identified either in the watershed or within the lake itself. Again, we use this data, as I mentioned previously, to not only develop our management plan, but then to use that plan as the blueprint for securing the funding that we need to implement these various projects. Now, some of you probably know I was the president of the North American Lake Management Society back in 2001. And in 2008, NOMS came up with this catchphrase that a lake is a reflection of its watershed. And that is not any more true of fact than it is when we look at Deal Lake. And we know that there's a strong lake and watershed connection. There's a lot of the water quality impairments that we see directly linked to the lack of proper or adequate stormwater management. And this dates all the way back to that previous study that I mentioned that, I published in 1983 on Deal Lake. And it's no surprise when you look at our watershed, it is highly developed. All that pink is urban land. And when you have that much urban land and all those pollutants that run off of that urban land into the lake, that's what causes the majority of the lake's ailments. So correction of those problems is really, put us in a position where we need to focus on stormwater management. And that's what we have been doing really for the past 15 years, implementing stormwater management projects to try to slow down these pollutants that enter every single day into the lake. So in terms of the data collection that we've been doing, and Jason will talk a little bit more in detail about his data collection efforts. But some of that data does provide us with a snapshot of the lake's status. And you can look at those snapshot pictures over time and put those together to create sort of a movie. And what we've seen when we've put together these snapshots of data that have been collected since the mid-70s, we see this story or this movie that shows how stormwater runoff and pollutant transport is impacting the lake's long-term water quality. Then we know, because of that data, that we need to be implementing more and more stormwater projects. And then we have used that data in the past, and we'll do it in the future, to evaluate over time the success of our various stormwater projects. So in summary, data is used not only for Deal Lake, but for every lake that's studied to really quantify the status of the lake and then help us identify ways to best improve the lake's water quality. It helps us distinguish between a symptom of a problem and the actual cause of the problem. And that data then comes the foundation for that long-term restoration and management plan that we need to guide our efforts. Through that plan, the Deal Lake Commission has been able to rank and prioritize projects and then obtain the funding because of that data to actually implement projects that work towards restoring the lake through reducing stormwater pollutant loading to the lake. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Adolph, and then once Dr. Adolph finishes, then we can take some questions. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll let Jason take the floor.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, my turn to try to share. Screen.
You should be good to go.
Okay. Are you seeing a title slide? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, we see you.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks again, Steve, and thanks to the Deal Lake Commission for giving me some time tonight to talk about what we're doing on Deal Lake and other coastal lakes in Monmouth County. And I structured what I'm going to talk about around questions that Jeannie was telling me they get asked all the time. People are always asking, what does CLONET data tell us about Deal Lake? Are different parts of the lake doing better than others? Is water quality improving or degrading since measurements began? What about harmful algal blooms? How can CLONET help with restoration? And what funding is available for restoration? I'm not going to talk about the last point, but I do have some information to share outside of the talk if people are interested. But I understand Deal Lake, as Steve said, has gotten lots of money for restoration and is starting a new big grant as well, I believe. So Monmouth University, where I work, has a long history of working with lake communities, coastal lake communities on stewardship and restoration projects. And this dates back to pre-Sandy. And in 2018-19, when I started working at Monmouth University, we started something called CLONET, or the Coastal Lakes Observing Network. And this is a community-based participatory research and restoration group. And the idea was to take all the work that people are doing at lakes in Monmouth County and provide some standardization and leadership to start a citizen monitoring program. This has been going on actually for 4 years now, and the data are shown on this app, which you can get to through this QR code or this link. I'll provide the slide after I'm done, but I'm not going to go there now because that would take up all the time that I have to go through that. That's basically where the data collected by citizen scientists on all the coastal lakes is returned in graphical format with some analysis. There's also rainfall data and maps of the data there as well. This is where we sample for the CLONET program. The black dots are where my lab, which I call the FAB lab, PHAB, phytoplankton and harmful algal bloom lab. That's where we sample the black dots. And then the red circles are where citizens sample at different coastal lakes. And you can see we have sites all the way up at Shadow Lake and Red Bank, Jackson Woods and Long Branch, and then between Lake Tackanassie and Wreck Pond. The diameter of this red circle for each site tells us how many samples have been taken at that particular site since 2019 when we started doing this. This is a zoomed in view of where we circle again in the black dots at Deal Lake. So we sample at various spots within the lake, Sunset Avenue Bridge, Wickapeco Bridge, Allenhurst train station, and down in the Eastern Basin. We had to stop sampling here because a sampler from the USGS was assaulted recently. So we've moved out our sampling site from there for safety. And Sunset and Wesley are also shown here with the citizen circles on there as well. So you can see, especially in Deal Lake, it's important, the citizen sampling, because places that we don't sample get covered by citizen sampling, but there's also some crossover. We collect data so that's shared between my lab at the university and the citizen scientists. We both collect Secchi depth, which is water transparency and a broad index of trophic status. I'll talk about that more in a second. Conductivity or salinity tells us about dissolved solids, salt in water. Temperature, which is a critical habitat parameter to keep track of, especially in the context of global climate change. Our lakes are getting warmer. Everything's getting warmer. Dissolved oxygen is a critical parameter because, like you and me, most of the things need to breathe oxygen. They do it through gills. And we know that when it drops below 2, things start to die. And oxygen also dictates how chemical cycling occurs in the lake. And then phycocyanin fluorescence, or PC fluorescence, that is an indicator of HAB biomass. And I'm so thankful for all the citizens that do the sampling. They're already on the call. I want to thank you personally now, and for Aaron Conlon, who's on the call and actually does the sampling for our lab for this project. In addition to those parameters, we collaborate with NJDEP, who are very graciously provide a very long now time series of nutrients measurements in Deal and other lakes. We focus on nitrogen and phosphorus, on both the dissolved inorganic kind, the plant food kind that makes algae grow, and the total NMP that tells us about really everything, including other organisms in the lakes. We keep track of phytoplankton biomass through chlorophyll A and through cell counts. This is Erin, but she's not in the field. She's mostly, and this is true, in the lab at the microscope, counting cells, dreaming of being in the field, as is shown here. And we do genetic analyses using a method called qPCR to look for genes that indicate presence of cyanobacteria and the toxins that they produce, in addition to turbidity and watershed characteristics like Steve was just talking about for Deal Lake and all the other lakes. And we have lots of data. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. This is a matrix of all the parameters that we collect in my lab for each lake, and the number in the cell is how many samples we have for that parameter over the 4 years we've been sampling. You can see Deal Lake is leading the charge because we've gotten some extra funding to do extra sampling at Deal Lake because it's so complex and big. And then on the citizen side, same thing. The parameters that citizens collect by lake, and the number in each cell is how many samples have been collected by citizens. And again, I can't thank you enough because it's a lot of data. And then, of course, we index rainfall data and the watershed use data to that to understand patterns. Now, the last thing I'll say about data is that we're cognizant of the fact that my lab and the citizens are using different techniques to measure the same thing. So we do a lot of work, and this is just one example, experiment where 2 students, Marie Morrow and Cora Hunt. Cora Hunt was actually one of the first CLONET samplers for Spring Lake in 2019 when she was in high school, and she came back as a college student to work in my lab last year and did this experiment with Marie, showing that the probes that the citizens are using are comparable to the probes that we're using in our lab. And we've done a number of experiments like this in different ways to look at that. So the point of that is we have a lot of data. The question is, how do we use that data to get at something about the lake? And at least part of the answer goes back to calculating trophic state indices, or TSIs, I'll call them. And this is a way first talked about by Carlson in 1977. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. And what he says right here, I quote it from the paper, is that he developed this because of frustration in communicating to the public both the current nature of lakes and their future condition after restoration. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about tonight. So what I've done is taken both the citizen data that's been collected and the data my lab's collected and calculated trophic state indices to answer the question, what does the data tell us about Deal Lake? So what is a trophic state? We're talking about trophic state index. What is a trophic state? I borrowed this picture from Joey Weiderholt because it was brilliant from the web. Lakes are generally classified on a scale from oligotrophic to mesotrophic, and along that gradient, which can be naturally caused or caused by anthropogenic or human activities. On the oligotrophic side is clear water, on the eutrophic side is turbid water. Oligotrophic waters have low free nutrient levels, and eutrophic have high free and total nutrient levels. Oligotrophic lakes are characterized by clear water without a lot of phytoplankton in them and a high benthic primary production, whereas eutrophic lakes have little going on the bottom and much higher biomass of phytoplankton in the water column. Oligotrophic lakes are well oxygenated, and their sediments tend to hold and absorb and hold nutrients, whereas eutrophic lakes tend to hold nutrients but release them at just about the worst time. And the fish common in oligotrophic lakes are the more sensitive ones, like trout, smallmouth bass, and then carp. And I hope everyone did really well in the carp derby recently in Deal Lake and got rid of a few of them. Because besides being common in eutrophic lakes, they also contribute to eutrophication, as I'm sure you know. So what does the trophic state index calculated from citizen Secchi depth tell us? This is for all the lakes in the system that we've been looking at. And as you can see, it places them all in the eutrophic range of the trophic state scale. Pretty firmly. The eutrophic line scale is drawn in black and yellow here. There aren't very many trends available in the data or apparent in the data since 2019 through present when we've been sampling, but there is this distinct seasonality. You can see the trophic state index goes up and down, which is saying in this case that the Secchi depth is going up and down. So based on citizen measurements of Secchi depth over the years, Deal Lake comes out with a TSI in the eutrophic range. If we look at the FAB data, we have other pieces of data to calculate a trophic state index on. So first of all, if we use our measurements of Secchi depth, we get about the same answer. We're all up here. But the DEP's measurements of chlorophyll A show a wide range among the lakes of trophic state indices. This green down here is Lake Takanashi. And you can see Deal Lake is up here, but it's not all above the eutrophic line. It's kind of spanning them. And what may look like a trend here going down is actually related to us adding stations over the years, sampling different areas. And then total phosphorus also shows a wide range of trophic state indices. Some lakes, so Sunset Lake is that bluish green one up here. I saw Gail and Barbara on the call. So Wesley Lake, in the purple here, the dark purple beneath there, right spanning the eutrophic line. So Carlson said in his original paper that when you get discrepancy among different indicators of trophic status, it's best to give priority to summertime chlorophyll, the biological parameters, especially the summertime chlorophyll to calculate the index. That's just shown here, just the summertime data, just based on the chlorophyll data. And you can see here that those data, probably related to the harmful algal blooms that we get in the summer, put Deal Lake above the eutrophic line, Takanashi, Lake Como a little bit below, and in different years, in different areas of Deal Lake, further below the eutrophic line. So this is a look at within Deal Lake, the different stations, which are color-coded here, showing, so for instance, the chlorophyll data here with the points that are below the line is this station, Deal Lake 5, which is at the Wicco Bridge. And there's no chlorophyll at that site because it's pretty muddy and dark, and actually almost drowned in the mud one time trying to go in to put a probe in place. It's about 6 feet deep of mud, about 6 feet off of the bank. But there's not that much variability among the stations that would make me say that in terms of trophic state index, the stations are very different among the different stations that we sample. So there are differences among stations within Deal Lake, but not as big as differences, say, between Deal Lake and Lake Takanashi or other lakes in the system. So, like I said, there's not strong trends in the data, but there's strong seasonality. And my group published a paper with the NJDEP last year and some students, including Aaron at Monmouth, looking at the seasonality of nutrients and harmful algal blooms from 2017 and 2018 data. The main findings of this paper were that the western stations in Deal Lake do have much higher dissolved inorganic nitrogen, which is consistent in my mind with that where the nitrogen is coming in through the rainfall. And that makes sense because the tributaries enter Deal Lake in the western part of the lake. We found a strong winter-summer seasonality where in the lakes, nitrogen, dissolved inorganic nitrogen was very high in the winter, and that was drawn down in the summer. And then in the summer, phosphorus was kind of accumulated in the lakes in excess, which suggested that it's in the sediment and conditions change in the summer that make it come out of the sediment. And that the harmful algal blooms that we see in the summer in Deal Lake are actually limited by nitrogen. In other words, you give them more nitrogen, they're going to grow more. And nitrogen likely comes into the lake through rainfall and through our urbanized watershed, like Steve was pointing out in his talk earlier. This nutrient time series kind of shows that since we published that paper, in the years since, we've continued to measure dissolved inorganic nitrogen, so things like nitrate and ammonia, and inorganic phosphate. These are the nutrients that make algae grow. And what we see is in the summer, in the warm periods, the red parts of the line, nitrate is very low, and phosphate is really high, in excess. DEP labs were shut down for COVID during this period. And during the winter, we accumulate very high levels of inorganic nitrogen, but phosphate is low. So there's this seasonal flip-flop of nutrients entering the lake. It looks to me, and I don't have hard evidence to back this up, it looks to me like nitrate is entering the lakes through rainfall, and a whole lot of phosphate is entering the lakes through release from the sediment from an autochthonous source or an internal source. And then I just have to mention really quick, one of the things that I'm super excited about, the citizen science data, simply by measuring conductivity over time, I've been able to link that to rainfall and demonstrate in all the lakes where you see a black dot, this negative correlation between rainfall over these time periods and the conductivity in the lake, which just underscores how sensitive a lot of these coastal lakes and their urban watershed are to rainfall. The conductivity you're measuring in the lakes as citizen scientists goes up and down with different amounts of rainfall that fall in the watershed. And together we've measured that and I think learned something really important about the lakes. That's being carried over into other areas that I can't discuss right now. But overall, I think that one of the things this data shows and supports and is related to things Steve was saying is that the cycle of rainfall, nutrients, and water quality strongly supports the need for further watershed remediation and stormwater management to improve the water quality of Deal Lake. That's where it's got to happen. Removal of sediment phosphorus within the lake seems important. I do not know the best way to go about that. That's out of my field. I would love to discuss that with people who are familiar with the different. Dredging is not the only way to do that, and not necessarily the best way to do that either. But it is one way to accomplish that, as I understand. So what about HABs? What about harmful algal blooms? What we're looking at here are animations of, since 2019 through the present, phycocyanin or HAB abundance in Deal Lake, Sunset Lake, and Wesley Lake. The yellow line here is a threshold at which the NJDEP will call something a harmful algal bloom. And you'll see in Deal Lake, in every year, except 2021, which was an exceptionally rainy summer, I think things were just washed out of all the lakes. Just about the second week in July, Deal Lake turns green and gets a cyanobacterial bloom. It's been consistent second week in July. So this second line here is the beginning of July. Sunset Lake has not been as consistent, but has come and gone in different years. Had a late bloom this year, later than a Deal bloom. And Wesley Lake never really had blooms in the past, but this year, for the first time in our observation, has gone over the threshold. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But that's certainly interesting. If we look at all the lakes in the CLONET system, these squiggly lines are the same animation we're just looking at, and that dashed yellow and black line is the same line. See that some lakes get lots of blooms, some get them occasionally, and some, like Takanasi, never get them. Well below the line all the time. If we count up the number of days that Aaron has sampled these lakes and found them in a state of harmful algal bloom, we see that Sunset is the highest, Deal's second, and Fletcher is third, and those come in at almost 10% to nearly 20% of the days sampled over 4 years. Those lakes are in a state of a harmful algal bloom, as would be defined by the state of New Jersey. So what about HABs? Not all lakes have them, but the lake we're talking about tonight, Deal Lake, is number 2 out of 10 in having harmful algal blooms by this metric. So how does this data help with restoration? I think that the comparison between Deal Lake and other lakes and between lakes in general is important to understand what's going on. We've done more work looking at watershed differences and dug in the data a lot more than I'm able to show here. I think that with these data in hand, we can start to co-develop as a community specific restoration goals, which we want. You actually want to be able to swim legally in Deal Lake. That's a long stretch probably, because that gets us into microbial pollution sampling, which I haven't talked about. But I also hope that you all, Deal Lake and other places, use these data and leverage the program that we have in the coastal lakes in writing proposals to get more restoration done. We should see, after continued measurement of the parameters I've been talking about, changes that reflect improvements in water quality, specifically deeper Secchi depths and lower total phosphorus and nitrogen and lower summer chlorophyll. If we take a cue from the other kind of lake restoration studies that have been done in different places. But the other cue to take from that is that it's never an easy battle, and it's never a short battle, especially in eutrophic lakes such as our coastal lakes. And I think you all understand that. So in summary, the specific findings for Deal Lake, I do think that our monitoring program is essential through restoration to help us understand the efficacy of the things that are being tried, whether they're working or not, and whether they're having an effect on at least that aspect of Deal Lake quality. There are other aspects of Deal Lake that are important that are not captured in the kind of sampling I'm talking about here. Deal Lake currently would be classified as eutrophic by common trophic state indices. I do not see trends in the 4-year data, but as an ecologist, I got to say 4 years is not a lot of time to see a trend in something like this. But we do see very strong seasonality. I'll say that both N and P are important targets for management because we seem to get them from different sources in Deal Lake and other coastal lakes, and there are examples in the literature of management plans focusing on one or the other, and looking at problems down the line with changing nutrient ratios by just focusing on one or the other. Compared to the other lakes in the system, Deal Lake is complex. It's got lots of nooks and crannies. Deal Lake is tough to sample and understand compared to a lake like Lake Como or Sunset Lake, which are much smaller and easier, very spatially variable. And in terms of HABs, what about HABs? Deal Lake is one of 3 lakes out of the 10 that we look at very closely that gets recurrent annual harmful algal blooms. And I'll say again, this is my prediction for this summer. My prediction, July 12th. That's about, it's almost to the date. Write it down and tell me if I'm wrong. Give me a 1 week plus or minus though on that. So I want to end by thanking all the people that are involved in this project, all the students that have worked in Deal Lake and other lakes since over time. That was the COVID year, of course. And I want to point out 2 projects that are, again, I'll leave these slides so you can go see them. This gentleman, Nick Ochogrosso, did a project on Deal Lake dissolved oxygen, and his project is on a web page at that QR code. And this young lady, Marie Morrow, both our Monmouth students, did a project on Deal Lake connectivity to the ocean, how the conditions in Deal Lake, and look at that beautiful bloom behind them, at least a nice color of green, how that affects the ocean at the ocean outfall. So thank you very much. And I'd be happy to take questions.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very, very much. Any, let's go right to the public for questions. I'm going to I'll leave the charts up. Maybe there'll be questions on the charts. Any, just raise your hand and go ahead. You guys can speak up if you want. I can't see the hands right now.
Why don't you take that off the screen, Don? I think you'll be able to see people better.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, just stop sharing. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll go back to the screen. Anybody would like to ask a question? Yes, James.
I suppose this is directed at Dr. Souza because he's been working on this lake so long. And you talked about 40 and 50 years of data. Could you prepare a relatively simple chart that showed the status of the quality of water in Deal Lake over the last 50 years in terms of, are we moving forward at a level? Are we declining? Are we improving on water quality? Could you produce a simple graphic showing, are we getting better, or are we losing ground?
Steve, muted Steve.
You're muted, Steve.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I mean, we would have to pick a particular parameter or a couple of parameters, to do that. But I think one of the key things to remember is that, particularly with urban lakes, that maintaining status quo a lot of times is actually a win, because our watersheds are getting developed more extensively. There's more intensive type of development. As Dr. Adolph mentioned, we have climate change induced impacts to the lake where we're getting these increased intense storm events that wash in more pollutants. And, even just maintaining status quo for urban lakes a lot of times is a big win. But, that's something that I'll have to discuss with the commission, but we would have to probably focus on one or two salient parameters, and try to use those as a means of, of evaluating the condition of the lake.
One follow-up question. I think there was a quote in there about the quality of your lake depends on the quality of your watershed and what's happening. Can you also prepare at the same time, over an equivalent period of time, something that would show the condition of the tree canopy in the 4,000 acre watershed area? I mean, we keep talking about major development, but can you plot that so that we can see actually how much watershed we're losing to development?
Well,
during that
DEP
40
already does that. I mean, DEP does that. You can go on the DEP landscape project site, and you can look at changes in land development over time. Now, that's not going to be, on an annual scale, but you could look at that probably, comparing like 2 decades ago to now. But DEP does have data such as that, where they've done aerial mapping and interpreted that mapping. That's out of my skill set to be able to
It's
do
actually,
that,
it's outside the commissions. I mean, we like trees, obviously, but the shade tree commissions in each of the towns have that information. I think you were aware of that. For Ocean does have information about the shade tree canopy and how it's being reduced. And I mean, I have pictures from the old sections of town. There's tremendously less trees. If you think about the development they have today, James, in Wayside, in the old days, they could build in the trees. Today, it seems like every time they build a project, they got to cut every tree down. In reality, that helps stormwater management. That's part of it. And it's just an easier way to build in their eyes. And that's really a planning board, the Board of Adjustment and individual towns that determine that. But it had been done in the past differently, that's for sure. Wayside didn't have any stormwater management, but they have a tremendous amount of trees there. So it's a catch-22 as I see it. But yeah, we are losing our canopy, that's for sure. It's a shame. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Jean.
I have a question. Yeah, Dr. Adolph, when you spoke about swimming in Deal Lake, that would be something that would be wonderful for us to have. And it's interesting, when I first moved into Asbury Park, the lady that lived next door to me showed me pictures of her kids swimming in Deal Lake. And I just couldn't imagine it even then when I moved in that many years ago. But you mentioned microbial sampling and that's not something we're really doing. But is that how you would know if the water was clean enough to swim in? How do you determine that?
Yeah, my understanding of the New Jersey regulation is that certain microbial pollutants like Enterococcus are measured. And so like take, for instance, our Swimming Beaches program, the Cooperative Coastal Monitoring Program, where they measure bacteria levels in ocean water constantly throughout the summer, and a beach is closed when it exceeds a certain regulatory limit.
Yeah.
They do that at those beaches because those are legally certified for primary contact. There are swimming beaches, or ocean beaches. That's the best thing about New Jersey, in my opinion. Water bodies like Deal Lake are not certified for primary contact because of the history of microbial pollution and related things. So they're not monitored. They're just taken off the list. They're just they're not certified for primary contact. So my point was, if you think about, where do you see and where do you want Deal Lake to go in the future? Like, what specific restoration goals are we shooting for? It's probably not swimming in Deal Lake.
Right.
I think that's,
it's just, for me though, it's a concern because more and more we're seeing people paddle boarding and, they're getting their bodies into the lake. And I'm always concerned as to how dangerous is it for people to have their bodies immersed in Deal Lake or be eating the fish that they catch if it's, not.
We do some microbial sampling in Deal Lake on different student projects. And we get variable results, but coastal lakes in general have high, they're called fecal indicator bacteria.
Right.
You know, wonderful name.
And really a lot, you're working with the Clean Ocean Action also.
Yeah.
We are finding spots, hot spots where there could be human waste, and we're trying to shut those down. We're trying to work on the geese, right? And the carp. And Jason, you brought up a great point that the elevated pH in the phosphorus in the water during the summer. I mean, I just hate the carp. I mean, the carp just stirs the water up so much. And I think we talked about this a couple of times that reducing their numbers means a great lot to a great deal to the lake. And we're going to try, hopefully do some more projects later in the summer to remove even more. But yeah, I just saw some stirring up the sediment in West Islanders the other day. It's disgusting. So all that phosphorus is being kicked up all summer.
Well, I guess my concern is with the microbial, with people's contact with water and eating the fish.
Well, eating the fish is studied by the state, Jeannie. If eating the fish is accepted in Deal Lake, it's limits on it. And and actually our fish are just as clean as the ones in northern Jersey, believe it or not. It's the same limits.
They say one fish per month is all that's advised.
I think it's one per week. If it's bottom fish, it's one per month. I think that's it. There's different limits for sure.
Yeah, I mean the DP has limits on striped bass caught. Right. Depending on if you're under 11 or if you're pregnant.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll get to go wrap it up. James, you got a quick question, or?
I just along those lines. Again, Dr. Adolph, you talked about being up near the Wickapeckle Bridge and 6 foot of mud, and you couldn't even get the probe in. Do any of the measurements that you're taking reflect on whether the lake is in fact infilling and in fact shrinking?
No, they don't.
In terms of water surface.
They don't directly, but Monmouth has made those measurements in the past. I don't know if Steve, you worked with Jim Nichols in doing those surveys. I imagine you did.
Yep.
But I'll say this. Last time I spoke to DP folks, they told me, and I passed on to people at the time, but I'll say it again at the last CLONET meeting, that having a benthic survey or a recent benthic survey of your lake is one of the key things that you can do to get money should something happen. Mm-hmm. And they made the point that after Sandy, it was the lakes that had benthic surveys that could show infilling from Sandy that got the money to dig out and restore the lakes.
That's correct, and we did get that, by the way.
Yeah. So I wasn't living in New Jersey at that time, so I wasn't directly involved in Sandy, but I sure hear a lot about it.
It took 3-4 years to get, and with 1.6 million, it cleaned out about 14,000 cubic feet of material. So that's what happened. Right behind my head, right here. That's what it was. All right, we're gonna leave this, but hey, Jason, fantastic. Doc Susha, fantastic. It was one of the best presentations I've seen there. Jason, your team's done a great job. We thank you.
Thanks, Don. I'm going to be presenting some of this work in Spain at a Ocean Sciences meeting this summer. Deal Lake's going to be on the international stage.
Thank you. I see a few people that are testing water. Thank you to them.
You can tell them Bruce Springsteen drove by many times.
Thanks to all the volunteers and Jason, thanks for being here, and Dr. Souza for taking the time to put this separate presentation together for us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act for this meeting have been met by transmitting the notice of the regular meeting to the Commissioner's official newspaper on February 9th, 2023, posting the notice where required and filing a copy of the notice with the commission clerk. The Deal Lake Commission meeting will be audio and videotaped and will be shown on APTV, Optimum 77, and throughout most of Monmouth County on FiOS 28. And take the roll call. Allenhurst.
Present.
Asbury Park.
Present.
Interlaken.
Present.
Lock Arbor. I thought I saw Melanie. Melanie, hi.
She was here.
She was there, yeah. She's on mute. Okay. Neptune. Ocean.
We're here.
Okay, tonight we have a resolution to approve the minutes of the regular meeting for March 16th, 2023. Someone please offer.
I'll offer.
Second.
I'll second.
Allenhurst.
Yes.
Asbury Park.
Yes.
Interlaken.
Yes.
Lock Arbor.
Yes.
And Ocean.
Yes.
Tonight we have a resolution to approve the treasurer's report and pay
Got it.
bills. Do you want me to read what we have?
Yes, I didn't get a copy.
Oh, okay, okay. At the beginning of the month, we had $180,130.51. We received assessments from Allenhurst and Lock Arbor. We received a grant payment and interest from the Manasquan Bank for a total of $13,405.32 in receipts. We had total disbursements of $3,483.10 and disbursements for grants of $1,770 for a total. It should be disbursements for approval for 2023 of $5,553.10. The balance at the end of the month is $187,982.73. Someone please offer to pay the bills.
I'll offer.
Second.
Second.
Oops. Allenhurst.
Yes.
Asbury Park.
Yes.
Interlaken.
Yes.
Lock Arbor.
Yes.
And Ocean.
Yes.
Okay. Take it away, Don.
Okay. Our 2017 319 grad is still moving along, and we have the Ocean Grove project starting. I guess it started yesterday with the delivery of some of the gear that was required, and it's that's going to be the green infrastructure that's going on, the rain gardens, 2 rain gardens specifically, and I believe a tree box. Peter, you want to give an update on that one?
Sure. The contractor has mobilized. Material and equipment are on the site in Ocean Grove. We met with the foreman and our inspector today to mark out all the limits. The first thing they're going to do is sidewalk removal and pipe installation. One of them on Friday, one of them on Monday. They're not sure what they're going to do first. And then after that's done, after the pipe is installed, they'll begin. We've then marked out the limits of the rain garden. They'll begin excavating for the rain garden, which will be over that pipe that discharges into Wesley Lake. 2 rain gardens, one on Pilgrim Pathway, one on the road immediately to the west along Asbury Avenue, the first fire lane, we call it. And we have met with the adjacent property owners to let them know what's going on.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. And thanks to Princeton Hydro, thanks to Steve for all their hard work on getting this moving.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I know you spent a lot of time at Ocean Grove. I saw you on the front page of the Coaster today.
Uh-oh. Show me that. I didn't see
Releasing
that.
some, going crazy with birds, releasing some birds off the pier, so.
They asked me if we could do a rain garden shaped like a cross, but I said, no, I didn't think that was.
Oh,
No.
oh boy. Oh,
I said the pier's enough, just one thing.
all right, that was good, Peter.
Thank you.
Also, I want to give thanks to our new treasurer, is not the treasurer and CFO, Ricky. He did a great job with consolidating some of the reports and with the help of Chris from Princeton Hydro and Peter's firm. That they got the paperwork off today. It's if I believe it's money for about $31,000 for repayment. So hopefully next month we'll have that in the
Wow.
checking account. And as everybody probably knows, we're going to be using our checking account to pay the bills on this particular project. So hopefully they come in soon. That's that. Thanks, Peter.
Okay,
Shoreline
thank you.
protection. I'm sorry. Anybody else? Shoreline protection. You know, I'm not happy about it. We're trying to protect Jeannie. Jeannie did a great job with Ed a while back with the pamphlets. We gave it. You know, we all gave it to our towns, and some towns are doing a good job. Some towns are not, and we're having problems with DEP enforcement. I've been having personal problems at Ocean Township, and it's been a challenge to say the least. So we got some issues on North Edgemere. We got issues on South Edgemere. The town's road construction projects is almost complete, so I'm happy about that. At least for the wall that's going up. Then they have to do the road construction, but the sediment disturbance looks minimal, even with the trees gone. So hopefully we can get some vegetation back there quick. But the housing, there's three or four houses that have been estimating the shoreline. So we told the DEP about it. We're hoping for, it takes time with the DEP, and we're hoping for some resolution. So Steve, you have any more input on that? Or?
Yeah, basically Matt and I are trying to get some of those questions asked. It basically comes down to all of the material and all the info that DEP is asking for is in the original grant application, but it gets lost in translation once it gets uploaded to Sage.
Right.
So it's all there. We just need to tease that out now and send it over to them in a different format. But you know, it's moving along.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to, I had asked, I guess, February, John, you, Steve, and we drafted a letter and I sent it to Robert Clark at the DEP, and you said, like, hold off. But he never replied. And I was thinking that we had a pretty good response from permits. Do you remember Christopher Jones, who we spoke to? But I was thinking I would resend that letter, given that people do get a lot of email, and I'm assuming he didn't see ours.
Give it a shot, Jeannie. Give it a shot. I think he was in Tom's River, right?
I don't know. I just sent it to an email address. I didn't mail anything.
Okay.
But I also thought, you know, I think I'm just going to reach out to Christopher Jones and ask him, because he was permits. Okay. He's in charge of that.
I'm going to follow up. I got to follow up on specific case numbers, and I'll ask also. So from two of us, we should get some kind of answers. So I'll take.
Yeah, because we were just asking for a meeting with him.
Yeah, well, it's more than that now. We got problems, so we got to
meet.
So,
right.
Yeah. You ask, I'll ask.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll follow up.
Okay, thanks. Goose, we got goose and carp. We got action on both fronts. Our goose program is working good. I mean,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I saw some baby geese on the boat ramp in Asbury. They must have been hiding under the bridge because nobody has seen them. They came out yesterday. They were tiny, really tiny. They must have just hatched over the last couple of days. But they've gotten many nests. There's some houses still have to be get letters from in Interlaken, but a lot of letters have been signed, approved by the residents. They've gotten some nests on the common areas. So, you know, for the public, if you see anything, please contact us on the contact page. If you know my personal email, send it. Or you know the contact the USDA. They're going to come out next week, I think Thursday. They're going to do another run. So check in your backyard, see if you see any goose nests, and go from there. I know Wesley has a nest or two, and I know Sunset's got a floating nest on our floating island that we put there. So I think they got to it, but the goose are out and nesting. So it's interesting. And the carp we got. Let me just show you the carp while you're at it. I thank the Asbury Park Fishing Club for another great show of carp. This was just a location, and one of the gentlemen that won the most carp had that picture. This is Brendan Gifford. with his
That's huge.
group. He had the biggest fish, as you can see. This was 14.6 pounds.
What?
Yeah,
I had no idea they
Wow.
got that big.
big,
Wow.
monstrous. There's Joe Pilata and the fishing club guys. There's a couple guys with bags of fish. There's a pile of them. And there's Dave weighing his in. I think got second place in the weight. And there he is, happy Dave. I think that was like a 12-pounder, I believe. But Brendan had the big one though. That was monstrous, 14.6. And I forgot, I think it's Eric, his name is. He got the most fish, I think it was 8, and he brought in. And that's the big one. And then this I think we basically filled that bucket up. And there's another shot, Dave, Brendan. But Melanie, the shout out to Melanie for arranging the carp delivery, and she actually, her and Frank delivered the carp to
In Margot.
and Margot. Yeah, they delivered the carp up north into and Melanie, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we brought it up to the Raptor Trust up in Millington. It's by the Great Swamp. And it's quite a place. I have to say, I was really impressed. It's beautiful. It's well run, and they have great enclosures, all these every imaginable raptor, eagles and falcons and hawks and owls, and just an incredible place with these great enclosures for the birds. Some of them stay there because they can't leave. They have things that are, would make them impossible to be in the wild. But really, I was impressed with the place. It's nice to go up there. It's in Morris County. And so if anybody wants to take a ride up, it's certainly worth it. Yeah. And they were happy. They said they're going to freeze the fish. And if they can't use them all, they're going to send some down to another bird sanctuary in South Jersey. So it worked out good. They were happy and we were happy. We took a tour of the place and we had a good day.
Excellent.
It was 100 pounds, right, Melanie?
Yeah, 100 pounds, 100 pounds of carp.
We have a lot more to bring up.
All right, fine. I'll go up again.
All right. But thanks for that. And I'll talk about next month. We'll talk about other carp options. But one thing we had done was electrofishing. We had contracted out electrofishing, and we didn't know what to do. We electrofished the whole area. We had one guy with a net. I think we're a lot smarter now, and we'll probably pre-bait the areas and bring in the I want to say electrocution squad, but it's the
It only stuns them. It only stuns them.
But it stuns them for seconds, by the way. That's why you need multiple people on the boat.
Right,
So
because they're
we'll have to
really
put 'em-
resilient. They are highly resilient
Tough.
to that.
They are really tough. Yep, they're milliseconds. The other fish stay up there for a while. But if we bait certain areas, we can just concentrate on those areas instead of going all around the lake.
I mean,
Save 'em all the time.
that's the way to go. That the baited approach, because in 3 days on one lake, I removed over 4,000 pounds.
Wow.
4,000 pounds.
Was that with the netting system?
That was with the baited netting system.
Hey, Steve, do you know if they got their insurance? Remember when we talked to them before, that netting company? They didn't have the proper insurance. We had to go through somebody else, and it was expensive.
But I can look. They stay in touch with me all the time, so I can reach out
ask
to
them. Ask them if they got their insurance. That'd be great if we could do that. All right.
Okay.
Let me move on, guys. The restoration of the lakes. We're still in communication with Ocean Township on at least 2 of the lakes. That's Terrace Pond and also the Fireman's Pond. But also, a lot of people are voicing the concerns to the town and Deal Lake Commission on Lollipop Pond. There's an outpouring of folks that helped out during the cleanup, so they want to get working on that. And that's where the doctor almost sank in the mud. I believe so. That definitely needs the heavy cleaning, and also work by the county on the bridge. If you notice that bridge is kind of falling apart there, so a lot of things can be done there. Any questions on that? Okay. Water testing. again, fantastic, Monmouth University. Thank you a lot.
You know what, if you don't mind,
Sure.
while I think, Erin, you're still on.
Is she there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Erin, do you need any more volunteers to test Deal Lake?
Yeah, we're looking for one more to replace one person we have who would like to hang up the towel. And ironically, that's the site in Lollipop Pond, I think.
Oh,
So
Lollipop Pond volunteer. Okay, I'll put it out in our next newsletter and see what we can get somebody to help out. And Facebook will use
I
that.
bet you we can, Jeannie. I bet you we can.
Yeah, we always get a good response. So
Yep.
you expect to hear from someone, Erin.
okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
The new DEP grant, that's the one Steve's guys and Steve, Dr. Susha and Peter's guys are working on. We have some commentary that we got to get back next week. Matt Mariano's going to, get the information into the Sage system, computer system, and we should be good. And hopefully we get the contract from the state to start that. But we're going to have to start in the next month or two in terms of concepts. And that's the Seaview Mall project, guys, which is part of our master plan, by the way. That's something we're going to get and check that off. Any questions on that DEP grant? Peter, you got any more on that, by the way?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You're absolutely right where we are now.
And by the way, on the other side of the stream, the Coke plant location on Asbury Avenue, between Asbury and 35, their stormwater retention. I went by it again the other day. It's really holding up well. And they actually have the stormwater devices that are going to go underground on the side, and they haven't been installed yet, but they're there, which is a good sign, Peter.
We are inspecting that site. I met with the developer earlier this week. They are on schedule. They may have a little bit of a change in one of the vendors for one of the sites there,
Okay.
but they're moving forward. So we'll keep you up to date as it goes along.
Thank you.
John, what did you say they were installing that you saw?
The stormwater devices that go under the parking lot. They're similar. I've seen them installed in the Wawa at 35 and Corley's Avenue.
Okay.
They're plastic drums, basically, that hold the water. Is that correct, Peter? That
Yes.
slowly let the water out into the groundwater.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Peter,
Yes.
with that site, like they've been elevating areas of it. So there's like 2 large pools of water that have been there for like a long time.
Mhm.
Is that how? So if those drains capture water and it holds it, is that any way reflective of how slow the water is going to have to drain out of those things to get into the ground?
No, not necessarily. What they're doing now is they are installing the connection between their approved stormwater management system and the discharge to the wetland areas. So we're monitoring it. DEP is monitoring it. Even Freehold Soil has been out there to look at it. And once that's done, the structures of the underground stormwater structures will go in and clean the water that's going into the channel that ties into the wetland areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Peter.
Sure.
Let me see here. JCP&L violation. I sent copies of Steve's report to the DEP. I didn't get no comment right now from them, Steve. So I'm still waiting. I'll follow up in a week or so with them. They did get it. Spring cleanup. I think the big follow up. I think we had a great one. So it was a good turnout. I think we had over 50 people in various 7 different locations. It was great. I mean, I didn't get the total tonnage. I think it was around 500 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. A little less than last year, but it was a lot of little things. We concentrated on small plastics along the ocean area by the flume. We did some major cleanup in the Asbury area as normal, but we did concentrate it by Asbury along in Bimbler area, Comstock, the Ballard Methodist Church, and we did Interlake. They did a great job over there. Yes, Melanie, go ahead.
Interesting that you say small piece of plastic because Margot had done the beach sweeps
Right.
the same day that we went up to the Raptor Trust. She had done that in the morning, and she said that that was what they found. The majority of what they found was these small pieces of plastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's piles. I mean, on the west side of the railroad tracks, you just scoop up leaves and debris, and there's 20 or 30 pieces of plastic in that. So, we do our best to gather that before it gets to the ocean, but it's definitely in the lake. And no bags though, very few bags. The bag ban is definitely working, which is excellent. So,
can I bring up an issue,
sure.
Don, that you and I have been going back and forth with on email?
Sure.
And I don't know if you got a chance to read my email.
Oh yeah, on the QR code.
Yeah, we do,
yeah.
we always have a list there for people to subscribe to our email list. It's a good way to grow it. Is during the cleanups, we always pick up another 15 people or so to get email out to for our newsletters and so forth. And Don and I've been saying, well, what would be a better way than just somebody standing there and a volunteer and let people write it down, and then you can't read their email address. So Ken said, well, why don't you just put a QR code? So then I thought, well, a number of years ago, I made business cards for us, but I thought if I could make up some business cards with the QR code that would take folks directly to the page to subscribe on their phones, right from that QR code, I could put the QR code on a business card, give it to the person and ask them to subscribe right then and there. Scan the QR code and then it goes. It doesn't take long to do, less time than standing in line waiting to, sign on the dotted line and write their name out and all that.
No, I think
so. My question,
I like that. I like that idea, Janie.
Okay, so I figured out that also I'd like to give the cards to all the people on the commission so they can carry them and give them out to people and encourage them to subscribe as well. So I came up with the figure that it would cost about $80 to produce 200 cards. And that would mean that if there's 13 of us, we'd each get about 23 cards.
Right.
And I can mail them to each member to make sure everybody gets them. And
I make that motion.
With the stamp. So let's say not to exceed $100.
Motion not to exceed $100 for QR codes.
Got it.
Yeah, business cards with QR codes.
Okay, who's going to second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll get on that.
Well, we didn't vote on it. Hold on.
Alan Hurst?
Whoops.
That's a good idea, Jeannie. Alan Hurst? Is he still there? Where'd he go? Alan Hurst?
Tony, you're on mute.
Okay. Asbury Park?
Yes.
Interlaken?
Yes.
Loch Arbor?
Yes.
And Ocean?
Yes.
Let's make it 150.
Yeah. And by the way, we still have to do, you might get a better price, whatever, 200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We still have to do a sign-in list, but we don't have to get all the information from them.
Right.
Right.
I voted yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay. But thanks,
I
Gina.
lost you for a minute there.
Yeah.
So how much money do I have?
We did 150. Is that enough?
150 is fine.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's all for old business. So we're going to new business. Jeannie.
Jesse.
Oh, Jesse.
He always does that to us, Jeannie.
We look
Always
so
when new
much alike.
business.
We look so much alike, right?
That's it.
I want to put new business. You're right next to one another.
We never appointed an auditor at the first meeting. We thought we'd go out and find a new one, but we're going to go with the one that we've had the past few years, Robert Holsart, and he does our audit for 2022 in an amount not to exceed 2,000. Is everyone okay with using who we've used in the past?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, would someone like to offer to hire Robert Holsart and Company as auditor?
I'll
for the-
offer.
Second,
I'll second.
Allenhurst,
Yes.
Asbury Park,
Yes,
Interlaken,
Yes.
Loch Arbor,
Yes,
and Ocean.
Yes.
Our next resolution, we're getting a jump start. Every year is July is Lake Appreciation Month. And this year we'd like to make sure we get it done early and send our resolution and proclamation over to its noms, right, Steve?
yes.
Yep, okay. So would someone like to offer the
I'll
resolution?
offer Asbury Park.
Thank you. Second,
I'll offer. I'll second.
Allenhurst,
Yes.
Asbury Park,
Yes,
Interlaken,
Yes.
Loch Arbor,
yes.
and Ocean.
Yes.
Perfect. Don, you want to talk about the herbicide?
Yeah. Steve set a proposal up. We had the RFP released. We had 2 contracts come back. One was substantially higher than the other. Steve and I were talking. Steve did a review, and the decision was to go with the Lake Management Services of Branchville, New Jersey. We do have a question for him once we reward it. So we're going to recommend them with the caveat that if we don't get what we want with the actual chemical that we're looking at, we asked them for doing 2 different types of. They could offer any chemical of various different levels and selection, and they chose. It was confusing on the chart what they chose. So we believe they chose one, and we're gonna say, we can't. It's a substantial price differential. So we're gonna ask to be awarded, and if we can't get what we want, or if they convince us that it's okay to use the one they selected, we'll go along with it. But Steve, you want to go any further on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, basically, just to simplify it, we normally give the applicators the liberty to choose which herbicide they want to utilize. The particular herbicide that was used last year, Procelicor, proved to be extremely effective. That was on the list from which the applicators could select. Lake Management Services proposed to use Comey. And I used to be a certified applicator and use these products in, I was a certified applicator in 5 different states. The bottom line is that my experience with Comey, particularly for milfoil and coontail and parrot feather control, is that it's likely, more than likely, that there'll have to be multiple treatments. And if it's multiple treatments, then the cost becomes exorbitant. Last year was only 1 treatment with a Procelicor, and that's basically what we're asking LMS to do now, just to either confirm that the price that they quoted could be used for Procelicor or Comine, or if it was just for Comine, for them to, to define what the cost would be if they use the Procelicor. So that's the confusing part.
And the reason we couldn't go back to them, couldn't talk to them, if we would have to cancel the bid offer, and we feel it's because they only have to do 1 treatment. They might say, this is reasonable. It's going to be the same equivalent amount of money. We'll go with we'll go with that proposal. So they may not be. They had never done. They work on that section of the lake, right, Steve? This is the first time. I don't recall.
No, they, so they've worked on the lake in the past under a different company name. Okay.
Yeah. But not in the last 10 years, I don't think.
Not recently. No, not recently.
So that's the proposal to award it to them and keep our fingers crossed that they agree with us that the Procelicor would be 1 treatment of Procelicor will do the trick. So
Okay,
that's
so-
motions on the table.
Okay,
Well, and what was, I'm sorry, but the other, oh,
Princeton Hydro.
what, yeah, Princeton Hydro. I don't have it in front of me.
They were-
It's $4,000 more.
Right, and
double
that
the
was, and what was the service? Was it one treatment or was it multiple treatments? What did they propose?
So they proposed to use Procellacor, but their price relative to last year had increased almost by $3,000 for the same services. In
Okay.
addition to that, as you know, as Don is pointing out, they were $4,000 more expensive
Right.
than lake management services. So, that's a significant price discrepancy there, both in terms of what was charged last year relative to this year, and then also just in terms of the differential between the two vendors that did respond to the bid.
And both met the basic requirements of the solicitation, correct?
Yeah,
So
they
if
met all the
if
other
they don't,
requirements.
Don, if they don't comply with what you would like them to do, then what happens? You start over?
That's the second piece. Let's vote on it. I would come back with another proposal to put,
Okay,
to resolicit.
yeah,
Thank
if we don't like it, then we'll throw out the bid, we'll rebid, reject
We'll
and
rebid.
rebid.
Well, we'll just
at the
rebid.
next meeting. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
so someone please offer awarding the 2023 herbicide treatment at select areas of Deal Lake to Lake Management Sciences of Branchville, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $6,000. Someone
I'll
please offer.
Steve,
offer.
Interlaken?
Second,
I'll second. Alan Hurst.
thank you. Allenhurst,
Yes.
Asbury Park,
Yes,
Interlaken,
Yes.
Lock Arbor. Is Melanie there?
Yeah,
Thumbs up.
it's on mute.
Okay.
Nodding
And
yes.
Ocean, thank you,
Yes,
Steve.
yes.
And- Okay, yeah, so if they can't do it, then we'll just reject all the bids and rebid next month.
Hunt, do we need a vote on that or to
No,
resolicit? or-
we can't do it till after you speak to, we're not gonna
We can't?
reject now. No,
We have to wait till next month. We can't do that prior?
you have to reject the bids and then,
Okay, let's keep
or
it.
ask Clint if he thinks we can do it.
Hunt, can we do that?
I don't have a legal answer for you at this point on that particular
Yeah,
point.
I
I'll have
don't-
to look into it.
Yeah,
But on
I
the
think
face of
we-
it, I would say don't keep it
Right.
as conservative as possible.
right.
Yeah, I think we have it. I think we got it. I'm gonna keep my hoping. Let's see. Okay. Jesse, what's the next one?
Does anybody else have anything for new business?
I do.
Okay.
One of them, the cars for Jeannie, that's off the list. Look at that. That was number 4.
oh,
Another one for Jeannie, Kingsley Avenue. We had a couple of cars going to drink there. I think Asbury put some bushes up there, but it'd be, if they put some kind of reflectors there to at least remind cars there's a lake in front of them, that'd be wonderful. Or maybe some change to the stop sign. I hate having cars go in the lake every couple of months, so.
yeah, okay, I'm working on getting a meeting with them that they
Oh.
wanted to reschedule, so
Okay.
I'll add that to the list.
Okay. I had a call from a gentleman from the Bayhead Environmental Commission, and a very nice gentleman. We had a nice talk. And we talked a lot about the flume structure and the surge gate, but he wanted some details. And I think he also talked to Peter's guys. And they're trying to solve a lot of their flooding problems in that on their lake down in Bayhead. So I just wanted to mention that to you. That other people are calling out. So that's the second one that talked about flood control utilizing the technology we have down at the flume. So I thought that was pretty exciting. The Deal Lake Watershed Alliance, I want to mention the paddle. Jeannie, we have the date on that. I think we got.
Yeah, I put it in the last newsletter. I don't know,
Yeah.
and it's
I
on
got
the Facebook page.
Hold on, I
It's
got it
in
here.
May, like May 20th, I think.
Yeah, let me get it here. Deal Lake Commission.
Oh,
Get the exact date for you all. get announced. Oh, where'd they go?
It's
It's on the website, isn't it?
on our website, yeah. No, I'm sorry. It just went out. I haven't posted it. We didn't post it on the website. It's on Facebook page. Deal Lake Facebook page.
Yes, it is.
I put it there.
Hold on one second.
And it's went out in our newsletter.
Yeah, it's
Speaking
going to
of
be May
Deal
20th, May 13th.
Oh, right,
Saturday, May
yeah.
13th,
Right.
9 a.m. to 11 p.m. starting at the boat ramp area. So that's
Don, do you want to bring up that the request that they wanted us to distribute?
in a minute. Yeah, I will. I'm going to do that. That's on the list.
Okay.
Yep. The South Edgemere thing I talked about, the wall's almost up. There was a dock on North Edgemere by the Corley's Avenue Bridge, and I met with the town officials in Ocean Township, and somebody had put a dock there a year ago, and now they had a giant pontoon boat there for a week or two, and caused havoc on my section of the lake. Needless to say, the town was all over it, and they put no trespassing signs on the dock, and it's kind of an unsafe situation getting onto the dock. The dock itself is nice, but it's on township property, so the town's working that out. I suggested the town make it an access point for recreation, so they're thinking about it. But right now, it's off limits to folks, and we posted on Facebook page the boats that were down there to, secure them, lock them up, and or remove them. So the town seems to be happy with them locked, according to what I hear. So that's just wanted to mention that to you. But there's some action on North Edgemere other than erosion control measures have to be done. There was an oil spill before, I guess the day probably before the cleanup from the DEP, and I have not got a call back from the DEP. I'm not happy about that either. It doesn't smell as bad, but I have no confirmation they did anything other than it just dissipated. But we're going to be talking to them hopefully next week again.
Where was the oil spill?
It was somewhere in the Memorial Drive where our treatment device is, and I haven't talked to the road department yet to check our treatment device to see if there's oil in there. But I have a gut feeling it's right around the Little League area where people change oil in their car a lot, and it might have just been thrown right into the gutter, or it could have been oil tank in the area. I couldn't tell what kind of oil it was, to be honest with you. I'm not that kind of expert. And then also the Deal Lake Watershed Alliance had asked us to do a little marketing for them for a campaign for Ocean Township elections, and Jeannie and I both got that, and Jeannie asked Hunt, and basically it's probably not a good idea. We all agreed it wasn't a great idea, so we are not going to do that. That will be marketing campaign ads for everybody. It was nonprofit or nonpartisan meeting by the Deal Lake Watershed Alliance and the Colonial Terrace Group, but we felt it wasn't in our lane, so we said no. I think you guys all agree with that.
They were asking there's like a meet the candidates thing in Ocean Township, and I guess we felt, well, two things: is this political? So does this really meet our objective? How does this meet our objective for the Deal Lake Commission to be promoting that? And then if we do it for Ocean Township, then that leaves us kind of open to do it for the other 6 municipalities whenever they have meet the candidates kind of thing. So what do you think?
No.
Yeah. So we kind of rejected that after talking to Hunt. So
I mean, I love those kind of things, but I don't know that it's really it's our
you should see it advertised. They can spend their money. They're a private organization, so they probably you'll probably see it in the paper soon. Anyway, that's that, and that's all I got. Anybody else has new business?
Well, is anybody in favor of doing that? I just was wondering.
No.
Okay.
We're moving on. We're moving on to that. Okay.
Commissioner's last word?
Yeah. I'll start with Steve. Steve? He's frozen. Where is he?
I think you're muted.
He's finally back from his travels.
Steve?
Which Steven are we talking about? I'm Steven.
What, you
Because
got
we
you
have
got your last word, buddy?
No, I don't have any last words.
Okay.
I'm back from my travels,
Very good.
but I'm
Finally.
going soon next week,
Where are you
Very
going
good.
now?
Chicago for a scientific meeting.
Oh, nice. I love Chicago.
Great. Safe travels. Anthony?
Not really. I think we're moving forward and things are moving along, and I like the direction we're going.
Very good. Very good. Anything, oh, by the way, anything on that JCP&L building? Any from Allenhurst?
No, I
Nothing,
haven't.
right?
I'm not on the planning board anymore, so I
Oh,
don't.
okay. Okay. Melanie?
Oh, I thought they reached a deal. I thought they had decided what they were doing in Allenhurst with the JCP now. I thought it was all settled. I could be wrong, but I heard it was all settled. Anyway, no words, nothing. I think that's a good idea, though, not to involve ourselves in really looking like we're campaigning for anybody, because then we've got 7 towns that will want us to do it. And no, let's just stay on the good side of everybody. We're going to need everybody's help. So
I want to thank, by the way, I want to thank the campaign people, whoever's running. I haven't seen a sign along Deal Lake, and they're not supposed to put them there, but I haven't seen any, which is good. They're not blowing in a lake. Anyway, Jeannie?
Well, just glad to see that the goose management project that we took on this year is really working. People are signing the permission slips. She's finding the goose nests. I mean, we need everybody's help. If you see a goose, like Don said earlier, go to our site and let us know exactly where you see it, as much detail as you can give, and fill that out. It's on the contact us page. And also, since the last meeting, I became the bionic woman. I have 2 new hips.
2 at the same time you did them?
Two.
At the same time, Jeannie? You did them at the same time?
Yeah, at the same time. And here I'm still talking to you.
And I've seen her walking. She has been walking on the boardwalk.
That's great.
With a rollator, one of those.
That's great.
No, she's up and running. I was shocked.
Not running. No, not running.
But 2 at the same time, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Everybody keeps saying that. You're so brave. I go, or stupid.
Well, maybe if you did one, you wouldn't want to do the other one.
Right.
Right. No,
wow.
she looked.
It's the eyes you don't want to have done at the same time.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Thanks, Steve.
That's, yeah, anyway. Talk about eyes. My wife is going for an eye operation in 2 weeks, so stay on the prayer for that. But it should be fine. But I'm going to have to be the caretaker for 5 days. She has to have her head down for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Sleep on her head and a face.
Oh.
Wow.
Yep. So I'll be cooked. She might die from the food. She'll survive the eye. Anyway, all right. That's all I got. Let's open it to the public, Jeannie. Or
A
Jesse.
motion to open the meeting to the public?
So moved.
Second?
I'll move. I second. I'll second.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, open to the public.
Anybody out there? James?
This question, thank you very much. This question has to do with Dr. Souza and the rain gardens. I'd like to know, how much is being spent on the 2 rain gardens, and whether measurements are going to be taken in Wesley Lake to determine whether these are helping Wesley Lake, making no difference at all, or hurting Wesley Lake. And I asked that because of the comment that was made during the presentations. I don't know if it was you or Dr. Adolph said that, well, if you've got a small lake, a relatively compact lake, much easier to make accurate measurements. And that makes common sense. So my question is, will you be monitoring the effect of the rain gardens on Wesley Lake?
So first off, Peter is going to have to be the one that answers the question about the cost of the rain gardens. I'm not sure what those costs are. Secondly, more directly to your question, DEP does not provide any funding within the grant for actual water testing. However, what is required as part of what they call the EPA success story, because remember, this money is coming from the EPA to the state, and then the state reports back to the EPA. As we have done with the other stormwater management features that have been put in, we will end up modeling what the pollutant removal is for each one of those devices. So there will be some quantification of what the load reduction is, but unfortunately, DEP does not provide us any money to do direct measurement of, the type that you're talking about. We will quantify that. That will be put into the final report that goes back to the state. And if you look at some of the other stormwater projects that we've done, the final reports that have been published by the commission, that type of data is all included for any of the the stormwater projects that have been implemented in the past.
Pete, you got the
Follow-up.
cost?
Why not,
cost on-
why not spend our own
I don't-
money? to
Hold
make-
on one second. The cost was going to be answered. Which
Yeah, I
think-
don't have the contract documents in front of me, but
Wait.
it was in the low $100,000 range.
Yeah, 136,000, I believe. Steve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the reason for that cost being a little on the higher side is the replacement of the two pipes that currently go from the drainage inlet on Pilgrim Pathway into Wesley Lake. There are dual pipes there. They both have to be replaced.
And Peter, that was for the two rain gardens and the tree box, correct?
Correct.
And I gotta mention that the DEP is very big on rain gardens and green infrastructure. That's one of the main themes of all these grants. That grant we got in 2017 was awarded to us, earned by us, when we added Wesley Lake and Sunset Lake to our proposal. We had failed in two previous proposals on stormwater grants, 319 grants, because we didn't have that much green infrastructure. And be honest with you, in Deal Lake, it's hard. We could do that, but we really were concentrating on treatment devices, MTDs on that main section going from Asbury and also Sunset Lake. We really wanted to get that done. And the tip off from the DEP was add coastal lakes and we'll be more favorable to your valuation. And we added two easy ones. Sunset pours into Deal Lake. As you saw by Ross Aboff, Dr. Aboff, that's a higher level of HABs than Deal Lake. And if I saw that chart right, that peaks and then eventually it goes right in Deal Lake. So if we reduce and dredge Sunset, which is a big ticket item, which is on our list and Asbury Park's list to get done, Deal Lake will be dramatically improved if we fix Sunset. And Wesley is obviously part of Asbury and Neptune they're partners. So that's why we added those lakes. And
Just
and that's why
one
we
thing
did
to
rain gardens.
right. One thing to add with that, Don, is that with the green infrastructure, is Dr. Adolph was pointing out, it's both nitrogen and phosphorus that are our enemies, and
Yeah.
green infrastructure is extremely effective in removing phosphorus and nitrogen,
Sure.
especially nitrogen, which is really tricky to do. So the floating wetland islands, each one of those islands has the ability to remove what would be about the equivalent of around 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of algae per year. Okay, and so that's that's documented in the literature, and with the rain gardens, our pollutant removal efficiency for phosphorus is up around 80%, and with nitrogen it's about 60%. Now, compared to other measures, nitrogen's typically about 10% for like a conventional detention basin. So we can achieve some pretty high pollutant removal efficiency with these small footprint green infrastructure devices. And so, that's why we're doing it. And that's why DEP is encouraging it, not only, for Deal Lake, but it's part of the new stormwater regulations that has to be done as part of new development, the implementation of green infrastructure.
Any additional questions out there? Okay, I thank James. Go ahead. One more.
I was now Wesley Lake, for example, does not drain into Deal Lake. Correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
So it's completely isolated.
That's correct.
With respect to the Sunset Lake draining into Deal, we're hearing these terms about this is going to dramatically improve the water quality in Deal Lake. And my question is, what evidence will we have that in fact it has dramatically improved anything?
Well, I think the direct relationship, if we follow what the doctors have said, and they're doing the research and they're monitoring the lakes, right? They're continuing, but obviously dredging of Sunset is probably the biggest thing that can be done. We have the wetlands, we have the floating wetlands in Sunset. They only been there a year. So, we got another year to study. But, and the geese population, now we don't control the geese on Sunset Lake, but Asbury's trying to do a good job on that. And, time will tell,
right.
I think. And by the way, we also just put the MTDs in this past year. So,
but just keep in mind, 4 geese produce as much phosphorus and nitrogen in one day as a septic system. So every 4 geese you see on the lake or on the lawns adjacent to these lakes, every 4, that's like having one septic system discharging into those water bodies. The amount of nitrogen and phosphorus on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody happy? Pat? How's Pat over there? How's Interlaken? I think she's got a goose hiding over in Interlaken. How's Pat? Oh, there she comes. Here she comes.
I do have a couple of geese over here. I'm watching them every day.
No hanky-panky going on over there, I hope.
What?
No goose hanky-panky, I hope, over there.
No.
Do you see a nest, Pat?
We don't believe that they have started their nest yet, but they're scoping everything out.
Okay, well, as soon as you see them starting to settle in, let us know.
Yeah, we talked to the young woman from in her, I'm not sure where she's from, in her kayak. So
she knows.
We have a relationship with her.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, let me, I'm going to address some notes here. I got some notes from James. I think the rain gardens were answered. Watershed, I think that's he answered that. I asked that question. We did talk about everybody. All the commissioners did receive all the bids on the herbicide. That's what we discussed. We voted on, and we're gonna put the information out on the website on the. I don't think we put the bids in. I don't think we put the proposals in, but
No, we don't put the proposals.
we don't do that. We don't do that. So anyway, that's
Anyone can come and look at them if they like.
Right. They're held by the clerk in the town hall. All right, that's it from here. Motion to close the open public meeting.
Anybody?
Yeah,
It's getting dark on my end, so yes, I would like to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming.
everyone.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Peter. Thank you,
Thank
Doc.
you.
If he's still there.
Hey, happy Earth Day, everybody.
Oh,
Oh, that's right.
happy Earth Day.